TFD live Q&A. We've got the whole team here. We've got the dojo dietitian. We've got the combat dietitian. We've got the fight dietitian. And we've got our newest member, the moose dietitian, replacing Lauren, the ex-fit dietitian who pulled a sickie and didn't come out for the Q&A. But we're going to answer some of your guys' Instagram questions. We usually do this online on a Saturday, but we're going to do it live for you. Let's get to it. So very first question, what is the ideal walk around body fat percentage for a fighter? Let's do a round table. We'll just go. Quick little answer. We'll go Big Jackie.
Oh, we're starting with this one. Okay. So I thought we're starting with the other one we discussed. For me personally, there's no ideal body composition for an individual athlete. What I speak about mostly is finding a body composition that you feel optimal at, that you're performing well, your blood markers are optimal, recovery, energy, all those type of things. And then obviously the second part of that is making sure that your body fat percentage doesn't creep up too high, in that it affects your fight camp in terms of having to lose too much body fat in a short amount of time, and then again compromising those factors that we just spoke about.
Yeah, I think two big things I always think about is you've got to have the body fat there to lose if you're going into fight camp. So work backwards from your fight weight or your fight weight and then work backwards. Keeping in mind, you've got to cut weight. You're only going to lose 1% of your body weight, hopefully in body fat each week. Hey, Moose. And then you've still got to lose that body fat. You don't want to go too low, like Jack said. Go too low. So many bad things happen. If you're too high, that affects your athletic performance. But the variance is massive. It's hard to answer that. Like, how do you say what the ideal is? Because guys can range anywhere from 8 to 16%, I would say, at the elite level. Girls can even range anywhere from 10 all the way up to 22%. I've had girls that if they get to 18% body fat, low energy availability, lose their period, all these bad things happen. So very, very individual.
Yes, and also finally picking a weight class that is most suited to your body composition at any one point is very important.
Agree. All right, next question. How often are the fighters you work with allowed to have a cheat meal/day?
I try to encompass a minimum of one cheat meal. I don't really call it a cheat meal. I call it an off-plan meal. So there's two parts to this. I try to include it at least once per week, but I also include a day I call a food freedom day, which we use, I say, nutrition plan as a foundation, but I kind of give them a break from the monotony of kind of weighing their food, so they can kind of use more kind of subjective and objective markers about how they're feeling in terms of hunger, and kind of using the visual cues to kind of to dictate their intake for that day. So you're basically giving a break from the monotony of, say, a nutrition plan, but also giving them an abundance of food choice as well.
Yeah, important to also point out, it's dependent on whether these guys are cutting huge amounts of weight, and we've got to be super dialed in. And if you're in that camp, you're cutting huge amounts of weight, reality is you're probably not going to get too many relaxed meals. If you're smart and you're cutting an appropriate amount of weight, there's absolutely no reason that you shouldn't be having relaxed meals or cheat meals. And again, we just program it into the nutritional plan. Yeah. So you just give them a little bit extra calories and they can bank it, for lack of a better word. And then they can have that freedom of meal. Like every single athlete I have, they do at least 1 or 2 relaxed meals, whether that's a barbecue, they go out. And it's more so for the social aspect or spending time with their family, so they can go out and, have the barbecue and film their YouTube channel, or they can go out to their favorite, burger restaurant and get that burger. Otherwise they just go insane. But you've got to be in a position where you're not cutting crazy amounts of weight to be able to do that.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. Like, I feel like for a lot of these things, with any diet, realistically, the best diet is one that you're going to be able to follow. And so giving yourself some mental space to have a relaxed meal once a week is makes a really big difference. And like, it makes the other 6 days a lot easier, because you're gonna have a break at the end of the week or whenever it's scheduled for. And I think that makes the whole process a lot easier for a lot of people.
And also, you're trying to make this cheat or off-plan meal something that's still nutritious. So obviously, I kind of advise things like a big pasta dish or a Thai dish, rather than something like a KFC Zinger box that may...
Goes to Thailand one too. All right, next question.
Bastard.
So same day weigh-in tournaments, how do you go about rehydration and refueling?
Yep. Okay. Sorry.
So ideally for a same day weigh-in, you haven't cut much, maximum probably 2% of your body weight. So refueling and rehydration, obviously you will need to rehydrate if you cut a little bit, but you're not going to be focusing that much on it. It's going to be more around getting enough carbs in for competition, in between matches and in the lead up to your first match, obviously.
Yeah, it's savage. I used to do this all the time with jiu-jitsu. I used to cut loads of weight and then I'd go on these round robin tournaments and I'd have like 8 matches a day. And if I did gi and no gi, up to 16 matches, it's horrible. It's fine for the first 1 or 2 matches or if you get a quick finish. If you cut weight, even if you do it well, you're going to suffer. That's why we say only 2%. And don't cut carbs. Like there's heaps of other things you can do. Low fiber, you can remove salt. You can do a little water load or a water taper, which means like cut your water out 18 hours before, but not completely out, or even just a sweat out. I started doing that at the back end when I was competing in jiu-jitsu. I'd just be a little bit over and I'd put my gear on and do my warm up and then go weigh in. And then I was always on weight if I had, 1% to play with.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I think you need to make sure your plan's structured in a way that you're still being able to eat carbs in the lead up to a tournament style same day weigh-in competition, because essentially if you cut carbs in that week leading up, you're not going to have time to eat a whole bunch of carbs before you're getting on the mat, especially if it's like a jiu-jitsu comp where you're weighing in and getting straight on. You're just not going to have the time to put those carbs back in, so you need to be eating them in the week leading up, and potentially doing a load the night before if you've done everything right.
Yeah, so I think take-home messages: 1, don't cut heaps of weight, 2% max. If you do cut weight and you're using dietary strategies, just use the low-risk ones, low fiber, low salt, maybe play around with your water, but make sure you're going into that competition day hydrated and you got a lot of carbs. And if you do need to sweat, like sweating's not that bad. Like if you can sweat, 1-2%, you can still go out there and do really well. You can even factor that into your warm-up. But yeah, just don't cut weight like an idiot. I have seen so many Olympic athletes or Commonwealth athletes miss out on medals because they stuff this up. So don't do that. All right, next one. All right, this is a good one. Big Jackie, take this one. How important is it to lose weight slowly to minimize muscle loss? That's a good question.
It is incredibly important. There's 2 parts to this. The first part is that being in a very large deficit can obviously accelerate muscle loss if you're doing it incorrectly over a long period of time. And the biggest advantage about doing fat loss over a longer period of time is that obviously you're not compromising performance in training or recovery capacity, but also you're giving yourself enough fuel to get through those workouts without putting yourself into that deeper deficit, which you'll see that muscle loss. So we find that a smaller deficit won't see those detrimental effects to muscle mass.
Yeah, I think what people need to understand as well, though, is if you're in a deficit, even if you're doing all the right things to preserve that muscle mass, like you got a high protein diet and you're still doing resistance training, you're very likely still going to lose some muscle. Like you're in a deficit, your body's looking for energy. You can just minimize the amount of muscle that you lose by being smart about it. But again, like Jack said, you just need to be smart about it. Don't go in a huge deficit. Eat your high protein diet. Do some resistance training, even if you're in fight camp or getting ready for combat sports competition. Even if you're an endurance runner or whatever and you're trying to lose weight, you got to lift weight because that's the biggest thing for keeping on that weight. Don't go crazy about it. Just follow those principles. All right, next question. Is it normal for fighters to eat extreme amounts of food the couple days after their fight? Big Jackie.
I think it's very normal, but is it optimal? No. I think that when you see people on very restrictive diets, their cravings build up over time, and then afterwards, after the fight, they've got this kind of freedom to do what they want, and they're going to honor these cravings, but you often see that kind of occur alongside overeating, kind of these moments of binging, which is usually followed by not feeling very optimal afterwards, and obviously this massive gain in water weight and stuff like that, which can kind of affect the psychology behind their body composition afterwards. But yeah, I think it's a relatively normal thing because you kind of feel like you've got this freedom and you kind of want to reward yourself. But again, I think there's some negative side effects in terms of that, and we can talk about that in a different section about the psychology behind eating. But I do think that whilst normal, not something that we kind of encourage at all.
Yeah, well, I guess if anyone's done a weight cut before, you'll kind of understand hey Moose, like the cravings that come in during the week leading up to the fight. Like I'm sure everyone's done it here, where you end up just scrolling videos of food, like Instagram reels or TikToks or whatever, and it starts to become everything you think about in those last couple of days leading up. So it's no surprise, like I've seen people, they make like notes lists in their app and stuff, just like thinking about the meals that they're going to have after they've weighed in or after they've fought. And like it's totally a normal thing to do. But as Jack said, like if you can put a plan in place for after the fight, it'll help to give you a bit of structure. And if you know what you need to do in terms of refueling and stuff in that post-fight window, it takes a lot of, I guess, the tendency to binge and as Jack said, like it sounds really great in the moment, but as soon as you do it, you start feeling like shit. So I think it's really important to kind of have a plan, not just up until the fight and the refuel, but also just have a plan afterwards for that kind of allows for relaxed meals and that kind of thing, but is not going to send you over the edge into a full binge and then the negative things that come with that.
So there is a physiological basis that explains exactly what you guys are talking about. And Carl showed that in that 2020 study that he put out with the Taekwondo athlete, and they tracked their within daily energy balance, which means what his energy availability was each day. So what he ate and then what he burnt every single day. And they found by the end of that 7 or 8 week camp, whatever it was, he was in debt to his body 110,000 calories. So you think about going through the weight making process, he finally makes weight. And Carl was saying that this guy was experiencing, like you were saying, Jack, like all these crazy food cravings. And he was even reporting getting up, sitting down and just having a Mars bar in his hand that he didn't even consciously remember going up and getting, because he was just trying to get those calories back in his body. So this happens with these guys that do these extreme weight cuts, and then they just go in such a ditch to their body. It kind of makes sense physiologically. You want to replace those calories, right? And what we see time and time again is that when guys put those calories back in, they stop training, our body will put on body fat way faster than what it'll put back on muscle. So this is why you see guys over time, when they do these massive weight cuts, come down and they try to put the calories back in, they end up with a less favorable body comp afterwards. So they put on a little bit more body fat each time. That's why making weight gets a little bit harder each time, because the body fat's going up and their lean mass is coming down. So obviously that makes cutting weight harder. And you see this time and time again with these guys that do these big weight cuts. And you go, okay, well, what's the solution to it? Don't do crazy weight cuts. Don't do big crazy weight cuts.
Yeah, I think there's definitely a positive shift in the mentality of athletes these days, because a lot of the athletes I work with currently, we speak about this and they kind of prompt me about how they're not wanting to kind of go through this cycle. So we're not only planning fight camps, but we're planning on the days and weeks after their fight to ensure that we're kind of not having this crazy cycle. We're not putting on unnecessary amounts of fat or kind of going through these psychological changes and these binge restrict cycles. So I think it's definitely a more positive shift in terms of, the combat sport world or the competitive world, in terms of that weigh in and then the fight and then the rebound. And I think one of the most vital parts of that is exactly what you do is, if you plan your fight camp, plan your off season. So gradually if you're going into a surplus, do that gradually per week and not have this incredibly large intake off the bat, and just slowly but surely increase intake, have that food freedom, which allows you to enjoy that food, but have that kind of your foundation nutrition kind of on point at all times throughout the year. As we speak about, nutrition is a 52-week-a-year thing. So we have that foundation there. You can introduce more freedom throughout that kind of off-season component, so you kind of gain the best of both worlds.
Agreed. All right. The second last one that we'll do. This is a really good question, actually. Should calories be reduced on rest days or when sick?
I don't think they should be, again, dependent on which part of competition season you're in, what you're trying to achieve in terms of your goals. But as a general rule, I don't think they should be. I think on rest days, it's a very vital part to allow your body to recover, and fueling it optimally to do so is very important. And again, when sick, your body needs nutrients and energy to kind of fuel your immune system to get better. So again, those two vital components are having enough calories, and so I don't think that should be reduced at all.
Yeah, I mean, you'd want to structure all this. Like if it's a rest day that's planned, you should have your plan set up in a way that it's going to allow for that, and not necessarily have to drop the calories all the way down on that day. They might be slightly lower because you're not adding in extra carbs to fuel a session or something, but you're not going to be dipping down into like a really big deficit just because you're not doing any training on those days. It should just be kind of like factored in.
Yeah, and a big thing people don't often talk about, if you're getting sick during fight camp, it's probably because your calories are too low as it is. Like that's a really, really common thing. How many guys get 6 weeks into camp and they go get the fight camp cold and they're like, oh man, I'm so sick. So you're like, yeah, because you've got not enough calories in for your immune system to bolster that. But rest days, like Dojo said, you should be having enough calories to rest and recover. That's what people forget, is like that's your recovery day. You need to give your body the fuel and energy to optimally recover. And people forget that fight camps isn't necessarily about all of the training. It's about all the recovery you can do from the training to keep rocking up to training. And that rest day and getting those calories in is so important. And if you're going, again, in too big of a ditch and you're cutting too much weight, no matter what you do, you're always going to be too low on your calories. You're never going to recover properly. You're never going to be rocking up to training in your best shape. So you're almost doing this fight camp as a shadow of yourself. That's why we always say time and time again, just don't be an idiot when you cut weight, and you get a well planned out nutrition plan that accounts for all of this and making sure you've got enough calories to not only support your training, but support your recovery as well. Very last question. I think this is a banger, this question. Who would win in a fight, Jack or Jordi? I don't even think it's a question.
I would fuck you up.
There is.
Can we run this one?
But this is legit.
Okay.
I just think this is the classic Muay Thai dweeb who thinks like, oh, I've done a couple Muay Thai classes.
Can you pause the camera for a sec?
I've done a couple Muay Thai classes. I went and found myself in Thailand.
First of all, let's put the numbers out there. Weight, height, weight division, because you're gonna get on that. You're like, you're heavier than me, which is true. I'm heavier than you.
No, let's go pound for pound. We're somehow going pound for pound on this.
Pound for pound, right? So you would immediately try to hump my leg, right? But vicious knees, vicious elbows, and a lot longer reach.
I just feel.
Andy Colgrove from the Ring Gym, shout out Andy, has taught me how to be an absolute weapon.
Don't get me wrong, like striking for sure, but I feel like the UFC has proved this. It's proved this for 30 years.
Gracie showed
it. Gracie showed it. And do you know the only people who don't agree with this are the people that have never done any jiu-jitsu or any grappling are the only ones that seem to think that, I'd mess them up. And you would. Most strikers would mess up most people, but you've got one shot to do it.
Just to let you know, clinching is technically grappling.
What do you reckon of that one, Moose?
Just coming to get in between you.
I'm just saying, you've got one shot. You miss that shot, you're done. I think if you get in closer, you're done.
Talking about yourself, you're one shot on me.
You've got one shot.
But what happens, right? So you shoot on me, right?
Jack in this one by looks.
You shoot on me, and also your dog loves me more. You shoot on me, and then I stuff it, and then you're like, oh.
So the guy that's never done any wrestling, never grappling, is stuffing the takedown of the guy that's been training for 8 years. How's that work?
Well, I don't get time to grapple because you work me so hard. But no, but you haven't answered my question though. So if I stuff your takedown, what happens?
I reshoot.
And then I do it again, and then you're tired. I'm sprawling all over the joint.
Does Khabib get tired?
You reckon? This is the other thing. Never done wrestling, by far the hardest combat sport, and he's never done it. I'm not getting tired before you get tired. That's definitely not happening.
He could get the Masvidal knee.
Yeah, that's the big thing.
I'm just saying. Gracie's proved it, eh? Case closed. 30 years of the UFC.
I think we should do this, though.
I think 30 years of the UFC.
We can ruin our friendship for life.
30 years of the UFC has pretty concretely proven. Look at every single champion in the UFC right now. They're all extremely developed, grapple-heavy athletes. Yeah. Every single one of them.
Can we go down to the pineapple and solve it?
Yeah.
I reckon.
We'll see. We can see this one out.
Short answer, I would win for sure.
Dreaming.
All right, let's get into the podcast.